have a list with me. Sorry. Under the proposal, you can see that we're showing the employer contributions going from 370 to 390 and 410 thereafter. And it shows the opening and closing balances under this. You can see for the medical and the prescription plan design that this assumes no plan design changes. You can see in the box that says biweekly average employee contributions, you can see that right now, for a single employee, for example, an employee is paying $33.69. That's a composite average of all single contracts. Under our proposal, starting in 11/12, it would be $32.34, and then it would increase thereafter, going up to 16/17 is $51.88. For a two-party contract, you can see in 11/12 it's $35.96 to start, and that would increase over time to $136.24, and that's a composite. The family rate would go from $37.38 on average right now to $251.71 by the 16/17. And then the bottom box shows that you can see the income and the expenditures for that. One of the things I wanted to note is that recently, after we completed this analysis, is that PBTF signed a new contract with Medco and renegotiated some new administrative rates, which save about $14 million a year. And so with those new numbers, the reserve in months for 11/12 would actually be 4.7. In 12/13, it would be 3.8. In 13/14, it would be 3.1. And in 14/15, it would be 2.1. Again, that came in after we projected this. And that's a $14 million annual savings. To show what this really means to the employees, you want to go to page 4 of the presentation or the packet, and I apologize, this is confusing. This is a very large chart with a lot of fine print, and I apologize if you need a magnifying glass. I'll try to go out at lunch and get one. You can see in year 1, at the top it shows, or at the top chart, it shows what employees are paying on average as a percentage of premium. And at the bottom, it conveys that into a dollar amount that employees are paying as an average based off of their salary. And that takes into consideration that someone paying 3% making under $30,000 is paying less than someone making $100,000. So that's why you see those different dollar amounts as you look at the different salaries. In year 1 and year 2, we're not proposing any change, the 3% and the 1.5%. And you can see how that translates into a dollar amount on this chart. Starting in year 3, we're proposing to start increasing the contribution, but we don't want to go from the 3% of salary to 20, 25, or 30% in 1 year. It's an implementation over that time period. If you look at, for example, I believe this unit's at $49,000. So for a single contract, they would go from $41 to $52 over the last 4 years, from year 3 to year 6. If I look at a family contract, starting in year 3, they would pay $57. By the end, they're paying $136. And again, for a family contract, they're paying $67, and it would go up to $252. It's an implementation over that time period. If you want to know what that is as a percentage of premium, you can look at the top of the chart. By year 6, you see that it's a 15.5%, 20.5%, or 25.5%. What this proposal also includes is considering out-of-pocket expenses. So for example, if you look at, for a single contract, we've assumed an average out-of-pocket biweekly expense of $15. And so when we consider the employee contributions as a percentage of premium and their biweekly assumed out-of-pocket expense, that's where we're getting to this 20, 25, and 30%. It's very confusing, I know.
Yeah,
I looked at it last night, and I was like, okay, I gotta explain this.
Yeah, well, maybe walk me through it again,
Sure.
because I'm looking at it for the first time, and I may be misunderstanding it. And I'm looking at this page, which was
Okay.
the first page, I believe. It's at top, it says scenario 3A.
Yes.
The 370, 390, and 410.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look at the first shaded chart that's labeled opening balance,
Mm-hmm.
that is, if everything stayed the same, employer contribution stayed at $400, employee contribution stayed the same. So that's what that's showing, correct?
Correct.
And then, and at the end of that, the projections by 2016 and 17, showing a closing balance, a deficit of $717 million, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm following that right. Now, the Commonwealth proposal that changes the employer contribution to 370, 390, 410, I go to the bottom box, the bottom shaded box, and under that proposal, by 2016, 2017, we're showing a deficit of 253 million.
Correct.
Almost 254 million, right?
Correct.
So the proposal's reducing the deficit from current levels, but it's not eliminating the deficit.
Correct.
Then what's the point in lowering the employer contribution?
Well, there is also the increase in the employee contributions, and that's what we're proposing is having employer and employee contributions.
This proposal goes beyond the term of the proposed contract.
Understood.
So you will be
Right.
negotiating another agreement after that.
Isn't this how we got into trouble in 2003? Aren't these really contribution holidays?
No, the Commonwealth, no, we're proposing contributions biweekly at the rates that we propose, which is 370, 390, 410. The Commonwealth is proposing to make biweekly contributions at those rates.
And the other question I have is, do these numbers reflect any investment income whatsoever?
They do. They include the employer contributions, and the employee money assumes what the PBTF is going to earn. It's based off of the PBTF's current financials.
Yeah,
And taking into account the new contribution rates.
okay, I was going to ask that question too, because there's a line in both charts for other, and it's set at 5 million. And I asked what that 5 million represents.
That represents a lot of it's COBRA income.
Okay.
So when we talk about the investment income and all of that, it's rolled into employer income and the COBRA.
But the employer income that you have, the employer contributions that you have, that's where you're saying that you're including investment income, right?
I believe so, but I can verify that over break. I'll check on that.
They're the same number every year. So I guess the assumption is 0.
Again, I can check on that over lunch.
All right, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. I know it's a confusing proposal.
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of time to look at it.
Right. What's important to understand is that we're slowly increasing the employee contributions. We're not proposing a dramatic increase from year 1 to year 2. There's a slow increase over that time period. The other thing that's important to understand with the proposal is that we recognize moving to a formula where it's 20% of premium versus based off of salary has a different impact on someone making $30,000 a year versus someone who's making $100,000. And so even though the end result is the same, it implements that over the next 6 years till we finally get to the point where we want to. But again, somebody who makes $30,000 and has a family contract, their expenses are the same as someone who makes $40,000 and has a family contract. The premiums don't vary. What the PBTF pays for claims don't vary based off of salary.
Sure. And that's, I mean, obviously you and I have been together a long time, and that's exactly the argument that I made in 2003.
Well, then you should be happy with this proposal and say you accept it right away, because we're going to a percent of premium.
What's changed besides the person in the governor's office?
I don't know that I understand the question. We're proposing to move from a percent of salary to a percent of premium. So.
And I know you said AFSCME, that the Commonwealth contributes $400 or AFSCME as an employee. Do you know the range for all the unions of what's contributed?
I don't know off the top of my head. That's information that we can provide.
Okay.
I wasn't involved with those negotiations, so I don't know the numbers, but that's something that we can follow up with.
I think the current range, and again, most of them are in negotiations now. There's
Right.
400 to 440.
Now, there's only one unit that has 400, and that's ASME. And I guess part of the thinking here is that ASME,
That's not correct, but we will provide,
oh, is there anybody else?
we'll provide the appropriate numbers when we call.
I guess the thinking is that, you know, since ASME agreed to reduce to 400 without a collective bargaining agreement, that since ASME employees are generally considered to be among the lower paid of all state employees, that would be inequitable to have them, you know, doing a percentage of salary, right?
I would object to the question to the extent that she's already testified that she was not involved in
Oh,
the
okay.
negotiations over
On the other hand-
contribution levels.
Okay.
I'll let you go, but I have some
No,
questions.
okay, go ahead.
I might talk with you about that.
All right,
first.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I know it's confusing, that's why we wanted to put into exhibit so you can see what we're proposing based off of salary and how it changes going out in the years. It's not as simple as saying 3% of salary for the next 4 years. It's not that simple. That's why we wanted to put the chart in so you can see how it impacts different members over the next 4 years.
And I'm wondering, you have in your scenario 3A, there's no change in the plan design.
This doesn't include any plan design changes, no.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Again, the plan design changes would be up to the trustees to decide if they wanted to make anything.
Well, or the question of who designs the plan, and the reason it is in the hands of the trustees is because the collective bargaining agreement says it is, right?
And the PBTF declaration of trust, yes.
We didn't sign that. So,
All right, you can go forward.
Okay. The other thing that I just wanted to note, and I apologize, is the union has proposed for Get Healthy that the participation, the employee contributions would change as a result of how many of their members participated. And they had a sliding scale in their presentation. So for example, if 0 to 49% of their employees participated, they would do the 3 and the 1.5%, and it would gradually increase. If they reached the max, right now they're at 43%, and they proposed an 85% would be kind of like the level they were shooting for. The income lost for that would be about $48 million over the next 4 years. So I just want to make sure that they were aware of that. The REHP is similar to the active plan in that it's administered by the PBTF, but it's not a PBTF plan. It's actually the Commonwealth's plan, and through an administrative agreement, the PBTF oversees that program. It makes sense to do that, to have consistency for the membership once they're active and they retire, that they stay with the PBTF. It also provides PBTF with larger purchasing power, with again almost 300,000 covered lives. New retirees receive the same benefits, medical and prescription, as active employees. And employees who retired on or after July 1 of 2009 pay an annuitant contribution rate equal to the active member contribution rate in effect at the date of retirement. So for example, they would pay 3% of their final annual salary when they retire. And that is subject to change in accordance with the active employees. So any changes to the active employees would also apply to those members. On July 1 of 2008, the requirements for the Retired Employees Health Program were changed from 15 years of service to 20 years of service. The union has proposed that we go back to the pre-2008 requirements and going back to 20 years. I did want to also note that there was a grandfathering, so those employees who were kind of right on the cusp of retiring and the change from 15 to 20 would have impacted them, were grandfathered in, that they could still apply to 15. It didn't save everybody, but there was a group of employees who were saved by that. The union's proposal is to go back to